Alright guys, so the ban list for Grand Archive just got released, and there's a lot to talk about. I'm really excited. It's it's a great day if you're a competitive player for Grand Archive, and I just want to jump right in and start talking about it and the implications that this has for the game. Lots of green flags. This is great signs, guys. Great signs. Don't worry, there's nothing bad. So first, I have it up on the side. So we have the effective date, which is June 19th, which is going to be a week after it was announced, which is nice. So in the future, if they ever do ban lists, that means we're going to have a time where we can adapt if we have a tournament soon, or if it's like right when they post the ban list announcement, we're going to be able to play under the format we've been testing for a while, which is great news. I love that they do that. They also say when the next ban list is going to be. So the next one is going to be August 25th, which just so happens to be Fractured Crown release day. We'll talk about it a little bit later. I highly doubt they'll do anything drastic then, but we'll see. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. Let's just get right into the structure of how their ban lists are going to be working. So they say it's going to be in 3 categories. So category 3 is going to be the cards that are either banned or restricted. Right now, there's nothing there, so don't worry. Category 2 is cards that are extremely problematic to the metagame, and they're going to be heavily watched. If they continue to be problematic, they'll have to move it up, or, if play rates go down, they might keep it at 2 or lower it accordingly. Then there's category 1, which cards that aren't really problematic, but they say it's an always include, which kind of makes sense. Things that are hard to balance around and limit design space. So these are all fair. That's just how they're going to be working through their ban list here. Category 3, banned, restricted. Category 2, problematic. And then category 1, not necessarily problematic, but limits design space, which I like. It lets us kind of see what they're thinking when they're looking at the metagame and how it shapes out. I really appreciate it. It kind of gives us transparency as to how they're viewing the metagame, what they think is good, what is bad, and like their thoughts compared to the people playing it, like us, the players. So it's nice. I love the transparency here. So for us now, this current ban list that just came out, there's 3 banned cards. Like, they're not really banned. It's 2 cards that are promos for only draft play. They're going to be printed, obviously, but they don't want them in standard, so they're banned. And then there's Imperious Highlander, which is a card releasing in Fractured Crown, but it's getting a promo before then. So it's banned until Fractured Crown comes out. So don't worry. There's no banned cards yet. So category 3 is empty right now. There's no banned cards. Now for category 2 with its current ban list, there's 2 cards. It's Sword of Avarice and Reckless Conversion. And I have to say, props to them for talking about these cards, because they both really needed to be addressed. So Sword of Avarice, obviously it was the flicker with the Ascension. When they talk about it, they say that it's not only Ascension, it's Zephyr and other flicker cards. It limits design space because they can't make cards that flicker if Lorraine can just draw 2 cards every time they play it. So I like that. It kind of talks about... See, if this explanation wasn't here, I would be really confused as to why they wouldn't do Ascension, because I personally believe Ascension is realistically the problem, because you can go between Sword of Avarice or Prismatic Edge, but it makes sense if they're like, oh, we want to make more cards that flicker, and we can't do that while Sword of Avarice in the game. This transparency is amazing. It just lets us know why things are being hit, and it's great. I love it. So Sword of Avarice, category 2. And then Reckless Conversion, thank you. I would say this is my favorite thing. Reckless Conversion is insane. So they talk about how when a Rye player activates this card, you are 99% of the time going to lose, which I completely agree with. Sometimes they might not see their win condition. I've had it happen only once, but it happened. And you just have to wait. You have to sit there and wait as they go through 12, 15 cards, and they're playing and digging. It's a lot. So I'm glad. And it also, besides the point of it taking forever and giving you all these decisions you have to go through, slowing down the game, it's basically giving Rye a second turn, which is insane. So I'm really glad they talked about those 2 cards. They are far and away just insane in their respective decks. Now let's move to category 1. So remember the not broken cards, not problematic, but unhealthy for balance and future design space. So they have Creative Shock, Tactful Sergeant, Baruch, and Freezing Hail. So let's start with Creative Shock and Tactful Sergeant. These are cards that they explain as always includes or staples, that they feel like even though they're designing future sets, like I think they said set 3 or set 2, they're still going to be staple cards. So they don't want to limit design space because if they keep making staples every set, then deck lists become too similar. It makes a lot of sense. And then there's Varuk. So they talk about Varuk. Domains are really hard to interact with, which is what makes them really cool, but they have the upkeep, which is really, really hard to manage. But Varuk is in this unique situation where you play Varuk and you immediately kill them. So there's no upkeep cost and it's hard to interact with. So I really agree with Varuk, and I think it is going to be a problem. So I'm really glad that it's here. I'm really glad it's here. Freezing Hail is the last card, and they say it's due to the recent rule change, which I'd like to now introduce, which is the other kind of, if you're looking at this list and you're like, oh, how is Dungeon Guide or Beseech just not on here? Well, let's talk about the rule change, which is amazing. So when you level up, your champion does no longer wake up, which is amazing. Your champion wakes up normally during your wake up phase. Oh my gosh, this is so nice. Because now Dungeon Guide just doesn't become this super insane play for Lorraine where they get to swing twice. It doesn't make infusions free anymore. But it also makes cards like Freezing Hail kind of crazy because when you ping them, they can level up or they can Dungeon Guide. It doesn't matter. They're not waking up. They only wake up the next turn. Like they get one skipped. So it's going to be good. I don't know if that's really going to push water over the edge. So that's why it's in the category 1. It's something to look at, but it's not necessarily going to be crazy. They also mentioned that Warrior, Guardian, Ranger, and Assassin are all attack-based classes. So if there's a card that just in water shuts out all attack-based classes, it's going to be a problem to design around. So that makes sense. But yeah, I want to talk about now the rule change because the rule change is obviously very, very impactful. So Dungeon Guide, Beseech, or any future cards that leveled you up, or for example in your recollection phase when you level up your champion, you don't wake up. Great change, because Dungeon Guide already does so much for a player. It allows you to get another materialization, and before you would get to wake up and swing again with Lorraine or Xander, whichever one you were using. And if you're going into level 3, it costs 1 less. That makes Dungeon Guide far and away the best card in most decks that were being played. And even in things like Rye, where it just has incidental synergy, being able to pick your arcane cards, it just makes it a card that is lowered in power. Obviously this doesn't affect Rye. This is still an extremely strong card. So glad it's being looked at. This ruling change should bring Dungeon Guide down, but they mentioned they still want there to be a way where you can make decks to turbo level 3 and then focus your deck on being a level 3 deck, while you can have other people building decks to like naturally get into 3, get into it slower. So it makes sense why they didn't just outright hit Dungeon Guide. Well, I have a feeling it will still be looked at in the future because it is still going to be an insane card. Beseech the Wind, I think, takes a harder hit from this because you still have to play the 3 and then pay full cost for whatever you're playing. A little worse than Dungeon Guide, but still insanely strong. So yeah, overall, I am so glad that they're taking a look at everything. It's really awesome, the communication that they're doing. So keep up the work. Yeah, that's all I really want to talk about. And until next ban list, I love these ban lists. They're so exciting as a competitive player to see what's going to change. So yeah, until next time, see you.